Hi everyone! Today we're going to be making a beer cheese fondue. It is super stretchy and delicious, as well as some homemade pretzels in the shape of little Mickeys, and a platter to go with it. Let's get started. So the pretzels are what's going to take the longest to make, so we're going to make those first. And all of the ingredients are pretty simple. You probably have all of this at home already. You're going to need some flour. I have 3 cups and then 3/4 of a cup separate. I have a tablespoon of white sugar. You can also use brown sugar if you have it. I have a tablespoon of melted and cooled butter, a teaspoon of salt, a packet of active dry yeast. I have some coarse sea salt to top the pretzels. And then as well as I have some baking soda for a baking soda bath for our pretzels. So I went ahead and added a 1.5 cups of lukewarm water to my stand mixer. And to this we are going to add a packet of active dry yeast. And we're going to whisk this together. Now that that's sat for just about a minute, I'm going to add in my salt, my butter, and my sugar, and give this another whisk. So this bowl is our 3 cups of flour. I already measured it out, and we're going to add 1 cup at a time to the stand mixer and start that mixing. And then after that, I'm going to add another 3/4 cup of flour. I usually, when I make this recipe, need more than this. I don't know if it's the moisture of Florida or what, but it normally takes me a little bit more flour. But we'll see how the dough's looking after I add these. Alright, so I turned the dough out onto a lightly floured surface, and I'm just going to start kneading it for about 3 minutes. You just turn it 90 degrees, fold it over, and press, and I'm just going to do that for 3 minutes, and then turn it into a ball and let it sit for 10 minutes, and I'm going to cover it, otherwise it'll sometimes develop a crust on the outside, and we don't want that yet. So put our dough ball in the bowl, and I'm going to cover it with a damp paper towel so it doesn't get a crust on it. And you could also do this with a dish towel as well. And I'm just going to let it sit for 10 minutes. So this is what the dough looks like after I let it sit for 10 minutes. And time to roll it out into our Mickey shapes. Probably in hindsight should have floured the rolling. That's okay. This is definitely the easiest way to make a Mickey pretzel, but you can also tear off a piece and roll it into like a snake and bend the ears backwards and loop them back around, and it'll form a Mickey. I'm making this about 1/2 inch thick, I would say. Alright, now I'm going to cut out some Mickeys and then bring them over to the stove to boil them. Also, it's perfectly fine to re-roll this dough and continue using it after this. So these are the Mickeys. We're going to go take them over to the stove and boil them, and then pop them in the oven. So I have a pot with 4.5 cups of water in it, and to it I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of baking soda. Just mix this together a little and let it come to a boil. Also make sure that you let it come to a full boil, or the pretzels won't get a full crust on them. It'll look kind of wonky and they won't have that classic pretzel crust on them. Right, using a slotted spatula, I'm going to add them. I'm only going to do one at a time just to make it easier for myself. and add it to the boiling water that I mixed the baking soda into. I find about 20 seconds is perfect for me, and then we're going to take it out and put it onto a baking tray lined with a piece of either parchment or the silicone liner, and I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some salt right on top. Just took the pretzels out of the oven. They took about 13 minutes or so, and just wait until they're golden brown and then they're ready to go. So in addition to the pretzels, we're also going to have some sourdough bread, some carrots, broccoli and cauliflower, and some green apple. Green apple is definitely my favorite with the beer cheese, and we're gonna throw in a few Disney touches as well. Do not cut things like me. I am not a professional chef or baker or anything. This is just a hobby. Please be careful when using knives and don't put your fingers in harm's way. And I'm going to cut a couple Mickeys out of the bread. And then we're just going to cut the rest of the bread up into little bite-sized pieces. In addition to the carrot sticks, the thicker top half of the carrot I cut into rounds, and I have a Mickey-shaped metal cutter, so that way I can make little Mickeys out of some of these. So last but not least, for the tray, I'm going to cut up a green apple, which is my favorite part. I'm doing this so that way I can get some. Now that we have all of our cheese accessories prepared, let's prepare the board to serve them on. I'm going to start with sourdough. Now to add our finishing touches. These are all of the ingredients you will need to make the beer cheese. About 2.5 cups of shredded cheddar, about a cup of a beer. We're using a light beer, and we just had Coors Light in the house, so that's what we're using. About half a teaspoon of ground mustard powder, and a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And I also recommend adding about half of a teaspoon of minced garlic. That'll make it even better. I just can't have that. And then salt and pepper to taste. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to the cheese. If you buy pre-grated cheese, it normally has stabilizers in it, but I grated this myself, so there's no stablers already in it, so it'll be very clumpy if you were to just make this without the cornstarch. I've also tried adding the cornstarch in separately, and it still separates a bit, so I really recommend just tossing the cheese with the cornstarch. Perfect. Now to the pot. I'm going to turn it on low. So we're going to add our cup of beer. Next, you're going to add the mustard powder and the Worcestershire sauce, and you would add the garlic at this point as well. start adding my cheese, a couple spoonfuls at a time. I don't want to add it all at once because I want to make sure that it melts well. And here's what we made today. And now there's only one thing left to do. I'm gonna go for the apple because that's my favorite. This is so stretchy and delicious. I'm not even huge on cheese, and this is really good. It's very stretchy, like I said. It's super delicious, and off camera we actually tried it with the pretzels, and we really loved the beer cheese with the pretzel, and Adam immediately got into this. So if you don't believe me that it's good, he got into it while we were starting recording it. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know if you make it at home yourself. Crack open a cold one. Take a sip to make sure it's good. Always share while cooking.